Hey, what's going on, everybody? It's Samuel Akem here, and I'm back with another one. I appreciate you guys for tapping into another Akem'S analysis. I got a great episode for you guys today. L&M Fine Jewelry isn't just sparkle, it's tradition, commitment, and Montana craftsmanship you can count on. Whether you're celebrating a touchdown, an anniversary, or a new beginning, we've got the jewelry that makes every moment golden. Located on American Way in Missoula and Main Street in Kalispell, we're ready when you are. Go check out L&M Fine Jewelry on American Way in Missoula or on Main Street in Kalispell, their newest location. They do a great job of taking care of their customers. They got a great diamond selection. I mean, all of the things with engagements and weddings, they got you. If you're looking for a ring for that special person, go check out L&M Fine Jewelry. They are the official jeweler of Akem'S analysis. And yeah, go check them out. Okay. This is a week one preview show. So we are going to be previewing all the biggest and brightest games in the Big Sky. We probably don't have enough time to get to any other games that are taking place, but we are going to get into all the Big Sky games. So that is Montana State versus Oregon. That is Sac State versus South Dakota State. That's Eastern Washington versus Incarnate Word. That's UC Davis versus Utah Tech. We got Idaho versus Washington State. And then we also have Idaho State versus Southern Utah, which I think could be a sneaky good game, but we will find out. One of the up-and-coming teams in the UAC, as well as maybe a dark horse team in the Big Sky Conference at Idaho State. Obviously, quarterback has some things to clean up, but from a talent perspective, he might be the most talented in the conference. So we'll talk about that as well. But we're going to be previewing all the games. Obviously, Montana State, Oregon might not be as big of a game, but obviously Montana State's playing, so that's why it's a big game. Sacramento State versus South Dakota State is the game of the week in FCS football. Everybody will be watching that game as well as myself, so I cannot wait to see that game. Eastern Washington versus Incarnate Word. Incarnate Word just dropped one. Eastern Washington obviously has opened up the season against Incarnate Word. I thought Incarnate Word's defense looked pretty decent. Their offense struggled a lot, particularly their quarterback position struggled a lot. So that'll be an interesting game from a lot of standpoints. And can Incarnate Word bounce back? How does Eastern Washington's defense play? How does Eastern Washington's offense look? No Kakoa Vispers, no Efton Chisholm. We're going to be getting into all of that. So please hit the like, please hit the subscribe button. Please leave me a comment down below. And we will get straight into it. Okay. First things first, we got Montana State versus Oregon. And we have our first Montana State depth chart of the season. So I'm going to pull up this depth chart right now, and I'll share my screen. We can all look at it together, and we can talk about what we see, what we like, what we don't like, and what do we think of the depth chart. Let me get on here. Here we go. So we got the Montana State depth chart. No, this is 2024. This is not right, man. This is not right. I'm sorry. What am I doing? What am I doing? Anyway, there was a Montana State depth chart drop, so I'm going to search that right now because I want to talk about it. And Justin Lamson was picked as the 2020 starter this year. This might be, no. This says 2024, but this is 2025. I don't know. Somebody must not have fixed the date on the depth chart, but this is the 2025 depth chart for Montana State. I.e. right here, you got Justin Lamson as the starting quarterback. Obviously, that's the Stanford transfer. I kind of thought maybe Chance Wilson would get an opportunity to maybe play, but obviously they're bringing Justin Lamson in for a reason. His statistics over the course of his career aren't great, but he hasn't had a lot of opportunities to start, so obviously this is where you're at. At offensive line, they got Burke Mastel, JT Reed, Cedric Jefferson at left tackle, JT Reed's at left guard, Everett Carr at right guard, Titan Fleischman at right tackle. At quarterback, we got Justin Lamson. At the running back position, we got Julius Davis or Adam Jones. I say they're probably going to start Julius Davis because he's the more veteran guy. The only reason he didn't probably play more than Adam Jones last year was because he was injured. So I wouldn't be surprised to see Julius Davis get the start, even though Adam Jones had such a great season. I suspect they'll both get a ton of burn. Ryan King at the receiver position, he was there last year. He's a redshirt senior. Taco Dowler is a redshirt junior. And then Chris Long. I think Chris Long might be a transfer guy. Somebody can let me know in the comments. But that's the Z receiver. And then at tight end, you got Rylan Schlepp. Defensive side of things, we got Hunter Parsons at end. At tackle, we got Alec Eckert. At nose guard, we got Paul Brock, the preseason all-conference player. At rush backer, or D-end, we have Kenneth Iden the fourth. Also a preseason all-conference guy, might be on the lookout for Defensive Player of the Year. Bryce Grebe at will, Neil Daly at Mike, and then Taden Gray at nickel. At corner, we got Jace McMillan. At strong safety, we got Caden Dowler, the twin brother of Taco Dowler. At free safety, we got Taki Uila-Kepa. Is he related to Danny Uila-Kepa? Somebody let me know in the comments. Corner, we got Seth Johnson. The other corner, we got Seth Johnson. And then obviously their specialists, Miles Sandstead, Kobe Frokjer on kickoffs and punts, Brody Johnson, Kobe Frokjer as holder for the PATs. Wait a minute. Oh, place kicks, Miles Sandstead. Okay. Taco Dowler at punt return, and Jabez Woods at kickoff returns. So obviously Montana State is playing against an Oregon team who was undefeated wire to wire in the regular season. They lost in the playoff. They had a first round bye in that playoff as well, if I'm not mistaken. I mean, obviously Montana State can beat Oregon. It depends on what Oregon looks like, but I think what I'm looking for in this Montana State game is just, I want to see what they look like. I want to see if they're playing clean football. And obviously, you know, if Oregon is bringing that heat in terms of just how they're playing, and if they're really beating up on Montana State, it might be kind of hard to assess what they look like. But we get football from the Montana State Bobcats, which is a good thing. I want to see what they look like. Obviously, they've had a ton of turnover in terms of defensively, offensively. It's even been mentioned by their coaches throughout the offseason that people think they have a lot of turnover and they won't be able to be who they are. This is their first opportunity to go show who they are. Mind you, Idaho played this Oregon squad last year, probably a better Oregon squad last year, and went toe-to-toe with them. They lost by, I can't remember exactly what they lost by, but Oregon pulled away late, barely, but Idaho was in the game basically the entire game. So I would look, if Montana State's going to, I mean, it's so hard to judge FBS opponents because FCS teams are always going to get up and be active and ready to play FBS opponents. So I don't think it's always a good judgment of whether a team's going to be really good or really bad, because you can get boat raced by an FBS opponent and still be really good. I don't think if you get boat raced, you have a chance to be really good. I think, you got to compete. At the end of the day, you have to compete no matter what it looks like. You have to compete in order for people to think you're going to be a serviceable team. But, I mean, if you think about the Montana team that beat UW in 2021, that team ended up losing in the quarterfinals to James Madison. Obviously, there were some injuries involved in that game that took some of the starters out of that game for Montana. But that's a perfect example of a team beating an FBS opponent who didn't end up being very good throughout the regular season, but was ranked during the preseason. And then, they were good. We were good that year in 2021. But I think when you see somebody beat a ranked Pac-12 team at the time, you assume that team's probably going to go pretty deep in the playoffs, if not win the national championship. But Montana State versus Oregon, I want to see what that offense looks like. You know what Tommy Mellott brought to the table. Obviously, Marcus Weir, their center from last year. Those are some guys who are gone now. There's other people. Connor Moore is also another player who's gone. I'm blanking on the center's name. He was a Bobcat. He was my teammate. He was a Grizzly at one point. He was my teammate at one point. But I'm blanking on his name. But there's some players that they're missing, and a lot of people are going to be watching this game wanting to see how they're going to bounce back from losing some of those pieces. So I'm going to be keyed in this Montana State game. Obviously, that first quarter is really, really important with FCS versus FBS opponents. Like, you don't want to let them come out and just stomp you out. Like, if that happens, it's going to be a rough game. But the biggest thing I'm going to be paying attention to is Justin Lampson. I mean, new quarterback. You're trying to fill the shoes of probably a historically great Montana State Bobcat quarterback. I mean, Tommy Mellott is probably going to go down in the history of Montana State Bobcats as one of the greatest players that's ever played at Montana State. Now, people who know Montana State football more than me can speak on that more than I can. But if I had to speak on it, I would say Tommy Mellott's probably one of the best players that's played at Montana State in terms of career achievements and what he meant to the state of Montana, him being a Montana guy. I mean, Justin Lampson's coming in to replace those shoes. So I want to see him play a good game, man. I want to see him play a good game. Obviously, defensively, Montana State was good last year on the defensive end of things. I want to see what that D line looks like. Paul Bratz as well as Kenneth Iden. I want to see if they're able to, well, obviously I don't know how well Paul Bratz is going to be able to get to the quarterback, but Kenneth Iden, I want to see how he does off that edge. Bryce Grebe stepping in to probably a bigger role than he had last year. Neil Daly, some of those guys who maybe didn't have as big as a role last year. I mean, a lot of new starters on this team that probably played but didn't play a ton. So you want to see those guys look good. But Montana State versus Oregon, maybe not the number one game for Montana State fans. It is the number one game on their schedule coming into this game. But for other people who maybe aren't so much keyed into the FCS versus FBS matchups, this might not be at the top of your list, but it's still a good game because it's the national runner-up that's playing their first game of the season. So I think everybody's going to be interested to see what they look like. Mind you, also, Montana State is the preseason number 2 ranked team in most polls. I would say Montana State's the preseason number 2. So are you who you say you are? We might not get a great judgment of if they are who they say they are this week, but we will as it goes along. But I'm excited to see Montana State versus Oregon. Last year, statistically, total offense, Montana State ranked number 2 in total offense. And then in total defense last season, Montana State ranked number 15. So, I mean, really, really good offensively. Obviously, you know Montana State's going to run the ball. Defensively, I think they were good in all facets last year. If I had to pick one place where Montana State was probably weaker, I mean, it's so hard to say because I don't think Montana State was really necessarily weak in anything. But if I would pick one thing where I feel like they were weaker was probably in the pass game. I think they were relatively good in the run game last year. But we can actually look at that. So rushing defense last year, Montana State ranked, they ranked number 24 in rushing defense. So not great defensively in rushing defense, not great offensively in rushing defense, but they're probably towards the upper tier last year in rushing defense. So probably something they want to maintain, if not improve on from last season. But as you see, they were 24th in rushing defense last year. In terms of passing offense, Montana State. Actually, I want to look at passing defense, not passing offense. But in where are we gonna find this passing defense? Gosh, so sorry, everybody. I don't even know passing offense, scoring defense. I don't even know where. Can't even remember where you usually find this at. Passing defense. I'm not gonna waste my time doing that. Either way, passing offense, Montana State definitely did not rank in the tops. But that's not because they're not. It's just they're not doing it. They're not doing it. So Montana State is never gonna rank in probably the top 50 teams in passing offense. They're probably towards the bottom. Yeah, 86 in the country last year in passing offense. But everybody knows why they were towards the bottom of in passing offense. So nothing to bat your eyes about there. I want to find where they were in passing yards allowed. There we go. Passing yards allowed last year, Montana State was 31st. So just like I suspected, a little worse in passing offense than they were, or passing defense than they were in rushing defense. But neither necessarily. I mean, that was the thing with Montana State last year. Is like they were a good team offensively, and they were going to put up points. Boy, were they going to put up points. But where Montana State probably could have improved on, and where it probably would have put them over the top last year, was their rushing defense. And I mean, their defense in totality. Their defense was not bad by any stretch. Their offense was just so good that you were going to have to keep up with them offensively in order to beat them. It wasn't necessarily that they were going to stop you so much. Now, they did beat some teams down, and teams weren't able to put up points on them at times. But for the most part, it was Montana State putting up points. That's why they had one of the highest ranked offenses in the country last year. I would look for them to try to improve on that defense this year if they want to be a true team that can get over the top and get that national championship. But yeah, I want to see what Justin Lamson looks like. So that's number one. I want to see their defense play a clean game. So obviously with an Oregon opponent, I would say if you can hold them to 20 to 25 points, I would say that's probably a good outing. If you can hold them to 15 to 20 points, that's a great outing. I mean, you're talking about one of the top 10 teams in the country. Last year, they were a playoff team, a national championship contender. They just dropped the ball on that. But I want to see Justin Lamson, what he looks like. I want to see what that revitalized offensive line looks like. I think they've got a developmental program in terms of offensive line there, so I don't think that should be a huge problem for them. But then also defensively, I want to see them look clean, up and down, So yeah, those are my 3 keys. Justin Lamson, what does he look like? Defensively, what do you look like? And then what does their offensive line look like in terms of bringing some new pieces in? Are they still going to be able to be as successful as they were? Because they had some veteran guys who had played a lot of snaps. Marcus Weir, Connor Moore. I don't know how many snaps Connor Moore had played, but Marcus Weir had played a ton of football. And then their center, whose name is still escaping me right now, had also played a ton of snaps. So those are some of the players I'm looking forward to. You guys let me know in the comments what you guys are interested in seeing from this Montana State team this week. Obviously, we all know it's Oregon. We all know it's a Power 5 team. We all know it's a top 10 opponent. So, you have to temper your expectations. But if this team has national championship aspirations, I would suspect that they look pretty clean and pretty good throughout the course of this game. So, you guys let me know what you guys think about that in the comments down below, and I will move on. Okay. The game of the week in FCS football is South Dakota State, the number 3 ranked team in the country, versus Sac State. Woo! Sac State, which is the number 15th ranked team in the country. And Sac State, I don't want to say that they have like a bunch of expectations, because I that's not how I would put it. I wouldn't say that Sac State has a bunch of expectations, but people are watching. People are certainly watching, and there's some people out there that want them to fail. There's some people out there that want them to be successful, but I mean, people are going to be paying attention. This is a team whose president has made a lot of noise this offseason. They brought in a flashy head coach. They've been doing a lot of good in the recruiting on recruiting standpoint of things. I mean, they've been bringing in a ton of recruits, and people want to see what this team is going to look like, and what better test in their first game of the season than a multiple-time national championship, recent national champion, back-to-back national champion in 2022 and 2023, and then also a team that's been a contender for probably the last 5 to 6 seasons, if I had to say, maybe 4 to 5 seasons, but they've been at the top, and they're in the best conference in FCS football. So you did all that talking, you made all your noise, you didn't get the FBS invite that you wanted. You're playing your last season in the Big Sky, last season in the Big Sky Conference. You're still going to be an FCS independent, but you're hoping to go FBS. We want to know, what do you guys look like? So I got the depth chart, the 2 deep of Sac State pulled up. The one thing I'm keyed into is the quarterback position. They have the or here. They got Jaden Rashada or Cardell Williams, the Tulsa transfer. And I think this is honestly by design. Now, I don't know much about Jaden Rashada. Like, I haven't done a ton of research on what his game is like. But if I had to guess, I would probably guess that Jaden Rashada is probably a pocket passer. And if I had to guess, I would also probably guess that Cardell Williams is probably a running quarterback. And I know that I've studied the go-go offense a little bit, and it kind of works when you have a quarterback who can do a little bit of both. You want a quarterback who can throw the ball, but there's a lot of triple option. There's a lot of eye candy. There's a lot of movement going on in terms of what's happening in the backfield, in terms of handoffs, pitch relationship, all of that good stuff. A lot of things that view like a triple option. Downhill running game, down the field passing game. That is the core of the go-go offense. And I think both of these quarterbacks kind of bring a different aspect to it. In terms of Cardell Williams, I think he's probably more so of the running quarterback. And then Jaden Rashada, I would say he's probably more the pocket passer. Now, take this with a grain of salt, because I could be completely wrong, and maybe Jaden Rashada is a runner and he's a passer, and he's going to play as that. And maybe they have the or on there because they plan on playing them both, and they want to see. They don't know so far who's going to be the quarterback. But the rest of it, left tackle, you got Sawyer Hayes or Jordan Herman. At left guard, you got Kendall Riley. At center, you got Dean Abdullah. At right guard, you got Jose Soto. At right tackle, you got Aiden Meek, who was at the Big Sky Media Day. At tight end, you got Jordan Williams. At receiver, you got Jordan Anderson. At wide receiver number 2, you got Gavin Thompson. And at wide receiver number 3, you got Damian McDaniel. At running back, you got Jamar Curtis, the former All-American, 2-time Patriot, first-team Patriot League running back. He is a player to watch for sure. On defense, you got Devin Wright at left edge. At defensive tackle, you got Deshaun Watts. At defensive tackle, you got Miles Bailey. At defensive tackle, you have Xavier Williams. At right edge, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. I was just making sure because I thought 3 defensive tackles. I'm like, what's going on here? At another defensive tackle, you got Xavier Williams. At right edge, you have Josh Kashola. At inside linebacker, you got Derek Houston. At inside linebacker, you got Oscar Moore. At cornerback, you got Warren Smith Jr. At strong safety, you got Antavion McKenzie. At free safety, you got Koa Akui. And at cornerback, you got Ricky Lee III. So that is the starting lineups for each for Sacramento on each side. I don't think I put the South Dakota State starting lineups on here, which I don't know why I didn't do that, because I definitely had it. But I didn't add the SDSU starting 5. I will try to send that to myself right now. But what I want to see from Sac State is you have the opportunity to play against the best team in the country, one of the best teams in the country currently. What do you look like? How are you going to show up? Are you going to show up? I mean, people want to know what this team is going to look like. A lot of people want to see you guys fall. A lot of people want to see you guys fail. And, you guys can either roll over and let that happen, or you guys can show up and show out. Which one is it going to be? Obviously, South Dakota State, I think, has really hung their hat on the defensive end of things, at least when Jimmy Rogers, the former defensive coordinator, was their head coach. And even before then, you're not going to win a national championship if you don't have a really, really good defense. And South Dakota State has had that. Now, one thing to understand about this South Dakota State squad is they've lost a ton of pieces. This offseason, I think it was 18 transfers that left and went with Jimmy Rogers. I might be underselling that. It might be more. But there was a ton of players that left South Dakota State and followed Jimmy Rogers, whether that be defensively or offensively. There was a ton of players that left. So how do they bounce back from that? Obviously, Mark Gronowski is also at Iowa now. I think he's looking like he's going to be the starter, but I don't know exactly. But South Dakota State is going through a change as well. They got a new head coach, obviously. So what do they look like? What does South Dakota look like? That is what I want to, South Dakota State look like. That's what I want to see. Sacramento State on the other end of things. I think if any team was the biggest question mark in the Big Sky, I think Sacramento State might fit that. They've had so much change. They brought in so many pieces. You don't know what to expect. And obviously, I am the media person in the Big Sky that picked them to win the conference. So obviously, I'm going to be keyed into this game. Obviously, my eyes are going to be locked on the screen. And one thing I really want to see is, I don't know if I would go as far to say as obviously in a perfect world, Sac State, I don't care who wins. Obviously, I want to see a good football game. And that's really what I was about to get at is I just want to see a good football game. I just want to see a good football game. I want to see good, clean football. I think last week, it was good to have football back, but one thing you get in an early season game, especially a week 0 game, is it is going to be sloppy. They haven't had a ton of time to be able to drill all of this stuff. They haven't had they've had a ton of time, but they've had the same amount of time as everybody else. That's why they start a week earlier in training camp. But still, you understand that it's going to be ugly ball. It's going to be ugly brand of football because they're not so dialed in. And the good teams, they clean that up from week 0 to week 1. Sac State and South Dakota State did not have a week 0 game. So we might see some sloppy football, but I want to see a good competitive football game. I don't really know what to expect outside of the fact that I know what comes with watching the go-go offense. But from any other standpoint, like South Dakota State, if they still hang their hat on the defensive end of things, I expect it to be pretty tough for Sacramento State to get things going offensively. That has been the thing against this South Dakota State squad for the last few years is just teams have not been able to really get their offenses going. And the teams that beat them, even when they beat them, South Dakota State and North Dakota State played 2 grind out football games last year that, one game, I think North Dakota State won 21-13, if I'm not mistaken, or, it was like a 1-score game and no team had more than 3 touchdowns. And then the other game before that was like a 13-10 ball game, or it was like 16-10 or something. It was a low scoring game. So, I don't expect a lot of points to be put up. And that's what I want to watch for. If Sac State wants to win this game, they're going to have to get their offense under control. They're going to have to run good offense. They're going to have to be able to move the ball. And, that is the key. That is the key for Sac State. South Dakota State on the other end of things, offensively, what are they going to look like? Griffin Wilde is gone. Mark Gronowski is gone. And I sent the depth chart to myself, but it's not pulling up on my computer. So I'm just going to read it off. I'm not going to be able to share my screen with you guys. But looking at the South Dakota State starting lineups. Chase Mason at quarterback. I think a lot of people are really, really high on him, and I'm interested to see what he looks like. Obviously, he's been backing up Mark Gronowski. Now he gets to take the reins of things, and, what do you got? At wide receiver, you got Alex Bullock. At the other wide receiver, you got Lofton Ogroski, who I believe was there last year. I think Graham Goring was also there last year, if I'm not mistaken. That helps out South Dakota State, in my opinion. The fact that Chase Mason was there helps them out. The fact that a few of the receivers were there last year helps them out. At left tackle, you got Quentin Christensen. At left guard, you got William Papke. At center, you got Shane Willenbring. At right guard, you got Kenyon Bigbo. At right tackle, you got Sam Hagan. At tight end, you got Grayton Gannon. And running back, you got Julius Lowridge. On the other side of things, defensively for South Dakota State, you got Dawson Ruperta at defensive end. At defensive tackle, you got Kobe Claiborne. At defensive tackle, you got Logan Green. At defensive end, you got Reese Kirschenman. At linebacker, you got Colin McShane. At linebacker, you got Joe Ullman. At linebacker, you got Chase Van Toll. At left cornerback, you got Miles Taylor. At free safety, there's an or in there also. So I guess there's some ors in terms of the second stringers. At free safety, you got Jalen Lee. At strong safety, you got Dante Johnson. And at right corner, you got Jaden Oliver. Now, to be fair, I didn't know a lot of the pieces on the South Dakota State defense. I didn't. I don't. I mean, I knew some of the guys like Francel and Adam Bach. I mean, there was a few guys on that defense that I knew the names of. Not that I knew them personally, but I knew their names. Their names ring a bell to me. But in terms of, I mean, anybody else on that defense, I don't really know. So I don't really know what to expect from this defense. But I know, they have a good defensive culture at South Dakota State. So if they're able to carry over that culture, I think it should be good for them. Looking at some of these starters for South Dakota State, it says Aiden Meek has a streak of 21 straight starts. Sawyer Hayes has a streak of 12 straight starts. I think he might be a specialist, Sawyer Hayes. No, he's their left tackle. And then Cal Magoo has a streak of 12 straight starts as well. And he is also, he might be a specialist. Yeah, he's their punter. Yeah. And then offensively, consecutive starts. It's mostly linemen on the offense in their career. Kendall Riley has 7 straight starts, another lineman. And then most of the guys don't have a lot of starting experience. On defense, Elias Mulliken has 10 straight starts, but he's not set to start. They said Warren Smith is going to start, so we'll see what he looks like. And then Josh Kashola on the defensive line, right end, has 7 straight starts. So we'll see what they look like. We will see what they look like. But I'm excited about this game. I am excited about this game. I haven't looked at any of the lines or anything like that, so I don't know who's favored in this game. Somebody can let me know in the comments where the line is at. If I had to guess, I would guess probably South Dakota State's probably favored in this game, just based on what they did last season. Sac State being the lower ranked team, everything coming into place. I mean, I would think that South Dakota State would be the favorite in this game, but we will see what they are able to do. You guys let me know in the comments what you guys think about this Sac State game. What are you okay, let me talk about my keys to this game, actually. My number one key to this game is the Sac State offense. Brennan Marion originally was at William & Mary. He was actually as a high school coach when he started developing this offense. Then he took it to William & Mary. It translated. He took it to UNLV. I think there were some stops in between there as well, but he ended up taking it to UNLV. It translated, and now he's at Sac State. I want to see what that offense looks like. Will they be clean? Will they be able to move the ball? What does that offense look like, and what do the weapons look like? Defensively, Sac State was it was a struggle for Sac State last year defensively. They couldn't string together stops, and ultimately, I mean, I think that's one of the biggest reasons why they lost. I mean, there was a lot of things going on at Sac State last year in terms of offensively, defensively. I mean, I don't think they really were a solid football team from top to bottom on either side of the ball, but I think defensively is where they struggled the most, so I want to see what that defense looks like. So offensively, what does the offensive scheme look like? How does it translate with that Sac State team? How do the weapons be able to run it? How do they look in that offense? Defensively, are they able to get stops? What do the pieces look like? What does all that look like? And then my number 3 key is Jamar Curtis. Is Jamar Curtis going to go off? Obviously, Jamar Curtis has done a lot of his damage out of the Patriot League, but this is the Big Sky, man. This is the Big Sky. You're playing against a Missouri Valley football team. I mean, even when you guys went up against a CAA opponent and you guys got a big lead in 2023, you guys squandered that when you guys would have came and played Montana, but you guys didn't. So obviously, I'm not trying to crap on the Patriot League or anything like that, but there are levels in FCS football, and the Big Sky and Missouri Valley are on a different level. I mean, the Missouri Valley is on a completely different level than most squads in terms of the top half of the Missouri Valley, but then you bring the top half of the Big Sky as well. Sac State is hoping to be one of those top teams, so you got to show us, and this is your opportunity, so let's go prove it. Offensively, what does the offense look like against South Dakota State? Defensively, what does the defense look like against South Dakota State? And then Jamar Curtis, baby. You got to be a difference maker. Jamar Curtis, I think, needs to be a difference maker for them to win this game. Will he be able to do it? You guys let me know in the comments what you guys think about this game coming up this week, and I will move on. Okay, next I want to talk about Eastern Washington versus Incarnate Word. Now, I was trying to look for the Eastern Washington depth chart. I unfortunately was not able to find it. But I got to guess Jared Taylor's probably going to be the starting quarterback. running backs, I think they lost Tuna Al-Tahir, so I don't think he's there anymore. I'm not sure. Obviously, they lost Michael Wortham. So, I mean, this is another squad. Nolan Olm is still there at the receiver position, but this is another squad in Eastern Washington where I don't really know what to expect from them. I think offensively they should be pretty good. They've lost quite a few pieces, but I think offensively they should be good. I mean, if I know anything about Aaron Best and how his teams have been built, I think for the most part they've been able to move the ball offensively. I think always where Eastern Washington has struggled is getting stops. I mean, any team. I think for the most part, a lot of teams who struggle to get over the hump, it's rarely their offense. It's most of the times it's their defense. Now you do get the rare teams that have really good defenses. I would put Montana 2023 squad in that line of teams that had like really good defense, and maybe the offense is lacking at times, because that defense only gave up 23 points in the national championship. Their offense only put up 3 points. So if you think back to what really hurt them in terms of trying to win that game, it really ended up being the offense. So Eastern Washington, what does that defense look like? That's my number one key. That is my number one key. Another key to this game, and this is going to be on the Incarnate Word side of things. How does Incarnate Word's quarterback bounce back? Richard Torres, to keep it blunt, looked terrible. Looked absolutely terrible on Saturday against Nichols. And, you know, you're a team coming in who was a top-ranked team coming into the season. You were a top-ranked seed in the playoffs last year. Obviously, you lost some pieces, but you returned your number one receiver in Jalen Walthall, and then you brought in another could-be number one receiver in Chaden James, and you threw 3 interceptions, man. And I watched the game back. It wasn't pretty. It wasn't pretty at all. And Incarnate Word, for all that Nichols did in that game against Incarnate Word, Incarnate Word still had a big, they still had a big chance to win that game. At the end of the day, they had a big opportunity to win that game, and the quarterback squandered it away. So now you get to run it back, not run it back with Nichols, but now you get to go again and try to beat this Eastern Washington squad. And, you know, you got to show up, man. Their quarterback has to show up. The quarterback has to show up. There's nothing else I can say about it. Now, one positive about the Incarnate Word squad and about this game upcoming is I do think Incarnate Word's defense looked pretty good against Nichols. Now, obviously, they lost 20-6. They lost that game 20-6. But when you really go back and watch that game, it was not the Incarnate Word defense that hurt them. I mean, if you tell any team that, hey, we're going to hold them to 20, all we need you guys to do is score 21. Any offense would take that. You're telling us we got to get 3 scores in a 60-minute football game? Come on. I mean, any offense would take that. Now, obviously, maybe you hope they give up 14. Maybe you hope they give up 17. But 20 points, that's a game you should win, especially all the opportunities you had in the red zone, you had in the green zone, you had in favorable positions. I mean, you got an interception. I think, what did Nichols fumble a punt? Nichols gave you prime position a couple of times, and you weren't able to capitalize on it. So from Incarnate Word standpoint, I'm looking to see them bounce back, and I want to see their quarterback play a clean game. I really want to see their quarterback play a clean game. But Eastern Washington standpoint, defensively, I got to see you string together stops. I got to see you play buttoned-up football on the defensive end of things. And offensively, from Eastern Washington, I want to know where the production is going to be coming from. Is it going to be the receivers? Is it going to be the running backs? Is it going to be Jared Taylor, the quarterback? I mean, where is the offensive production coming from? You just lost Efton Chisholm, who was a big portion of your offense for the last 2 to 3 seasons. Where is he going? Where is that production going to be replaced at? Nolan Olm, somebody who dealt with injuries in 2024, somebody who could step into those shoes and potentially be a weapon for the quarterback. Obviously, he's going to be a guy to watch. But where else is it coming from? We don't have it too deep in front of us right now, so obviously we don't know who the potential starters are or who the starters are going to be and where that production potentially could come from. But if I know anything about Eastern Washington, especially last season, if they weren't passing the ball to Efton Chisholm for the most part, they were running the ball, whether it be with Taylor or just with their running backs, and they had a pretty damn good rushing offense. If I go back to last year, rushing offense, I'm pretty sure Eastern Washington, they were 5th in rushing offense last year, averaging 229 rushing yards a game. So if Eastern Washington can do that again this season, I mean, there's no telling how good they could be. Now, obviously, the quarterback, how good is he as a thrower? Their running backs, how good are they? But I mean, Eastern Washington showed they could do it. Where Eastern Washington was hurt was, if we go to passing yards allowed, I'm sure Eastern Washington's towards the bottom of the country last year. It was towards the bottom of the country last year in passing yards allowed. I mean, they're not even on this page. They might actually be on the third page of passing yards allowed. Eastern Washington was second worst in the country in passing yards allowed. What are we talking about? 285.8 passing yards allowed per game from Eastern Washington last year. What are we talking about? What? Right above Portland State, who was by many metrics the second to third worst team in the conference, in the Big Ten Conference last year. Now Eastern Washington was also down there with them, but I mean, this is exactly what I'm talking about. This cannot be the case if Eastern Washington wants to have any chance at winning this game. Obviously, we saw what Incarnate Word was able to do to Nichols, because even if you look back at that Nichols game, I don't have the stats pulled up right in front of me, but I'm pretty sure Nichols only had about 60 to 70 rushing yards in that game. So you want to talk about how bad Incarnate Word looked against Nichols, but also you need to understand that, like, Incarnate Word's defense played a pretty solid game, and obviously they had their mistakes. They gave it the post over the top. I mean, they messed up. It was week 0. They messed up. I'm not trying to make any excuses for them. They didn't play great, but from a standpoint of wanting to give your team an opportunity to win the game, Incarnate Word's defense did just that. Let's see what rushing defense was last year for Eastern Washington. That's SEMO. But rushing defense, I don't even think Eastern Washington. I mean, defensively, Eastern Washington was bad last year, and this is why I'm trying to illustrate this. We're going to page 3 once again, and they are 104 in the country last year. So they're giving up 190 rushing yards a game. Passing yards, they were giving up 258. If my math is correct, that's over 400 yards of offense per game on average. So I mean, they have to be better defensively, and this is the point I'm making. My number one key for this game against Eastern Washington and Incarnate Word is, what does Eastern Washington's defense look like? You have to look better. You have to do better. You have to play better. If your team is going to be any sort of competitive in this game or throughout the course of the season, your defense has to look better. Number 2, where are their offensive weapons coming from? Who is going to be the production? Efton Chisholm just made the Patriots 53-man roster. He is the player that you guys leaned on for everything. Eastern Washington leaned on for everything last season. Where does that production come from this season? And number 3, on the Incarnate Word side of things, how does Richard Torres and that Incarnate Word offense bounce back after an ugly first game in week 0? I want to see Richard Torres play a clean game. I want to see them get that run game going. I want to see them be able to use their number 1 receiver in Jalen Walthall as well as Chaden James, get them involved in the game. I want to see Richard Torres be better in this week 1 game against Eastern Washington. So those are my keys. Eastern Washington's defense. What is Eastern Washington's offensive weapons? Where does that production come from? And then on my number 3 key is, can Incarnate Word bounce back? Offensively. Defensively, I think they did fine. Offensively, I want to see Richard Torres bounce back. So you guys let me know what you guys think about that down below, and I will move on. Okay, coming up this week, we got UC Davis versus Utah Tech. Both games, if you didn't watch last week, both teams, if you didn't watch last week, are playing their first game of the season this week. First game of the season at 8 p.m. I believe they're in St. George, Utah. Utah Tech gets the home game. Utah Tech, the newest member of the Big Sky Conference, starting in 2026, along with Southern Utah returning to the Big Sky Conference. This is, I mean, I could have saw this coming in terms of Utah Tech joining the conference. They've been playing Big Sky teams for the last 2 to 3 seasons in their non-conference schedule. But what I'm looking for in this game this week against UC Davis and Utah Tech, we saw UC Davis. If you paid attention last week against Mercer, you saw UC Davis, and it was a tale of 2 halves. In the first half, Caden Pinnock looked good. The offensive line was blocking well. The running game was going well. I mean, they were clicking on all cylinders offensively in the first half. In the second half of things, when Mercer went into the locker room, made adjustments, and they came back out in the second half, were containing Caden Pinnock. They weren't letting him get out of the pocket. They were going to make him beat him with his arm. And, you know, it's not that he couldn't do it. We didn't get to see a full sample size of if he could do it or not. But he struggled in the second half. He definitely struggled in the second half. He threw an interception in the second half. I mean, he didn't look as clean in the second half. And when they forced him to throw the ball instead of using his legs, he seemed to not be able to deal with it as much. Now, obviously, he's a redshirt freshman. That was his first career start. Hopefully he can improve and look better. But that's my number one key for this game. I want to see a full game from Caden Pinnock. I want to see a full clean game from Caden Pinnock. I want to see what he can do with a full 60 minutes. Obviously, you're playing Utah Tech. We know what Utah Tech has been the last few years. Could they have improved this offseason? 100% they could have. But we know what Utah Tech is. So if UC Davis is who they expect to be this season, I expect them to go in and win this game by 2 to 3 scores. I want to see a really, really clean game from UC Davis. Defensively, I think UC Davis played pretty well. They started to bend a little bit in the second half of that game, but I think defensively they played pretty well throughout the course of the game. They just needed to shore up some things. But UC Davis, we've already got a little piece and got a little taste of what they look like this season. I want to see the offense and I want to see them continue their success from the first half of that game last week. The second half was pretty rough. And we don't need a depth chart for UC Davis. We kind of already know where some of their pieces are. Carter Vargas, Jordan Fisher, Caden Pinnock at the quarterback position, Samuel Batu at the receiver position, offensive line, one of the best offensive lines returning in the conference. Defensively, Connor Porter's, the Porter brothers, I'll say, and then some of those other pieces defensively whose names I don't have at the top of my list. Goligoski on the defensive line. I mean, I want to see their stars be stars. I really want to see like an outlandish stat line from a UC Davis player coming into this game. Like I'd love to see like 200 rushing yards from one of the running backs, 300 passing yards from Caden Pinnock, maybe 100 rushing yards from Caden Pinnock. Like I want to see a game like that this week against UC Davis. I would like to see a game like that. Now, obviously, my main thing is I just want them to look clean. I want Caden Pinnock to play a good game. That's what I would like to see. But who knows? You know, Utah Tech could be a wagon this year. We don't know. Utah Tech could be the number one team in the United Athletic Conference this year, and they could blow everybody out. Now, do I suspect to see that? Do I expect to see that? No. But can we see that? Could we see that? Potentially. We'll see. Utah Tech on the other side of things, I don't know much about this Utah Tech squad, and in transparency to them and everybody paying attention to this, I did not do any research on Utah Tech. I don't know much about their squad. I don't know what they're going to bring to the table against UC Davis. I'm excited to find out what they're going to bring to the table against UC Davis. But, yeah, I mean, UC Davis really, they got to bounce back from that second half because even though the stats aren't there, even though, you know, we can't go back and watch that game at all. I mean, it's like that game did not exist. We all know what we saw. And we saw a really, really good first half from UC Davis. And then we saw it kind of taper off in the second half. And Mercer was on that ass. So I want to see a really, really clean full game, full 60 minutes from UC Davis. I don't have many thoughts about this UC Davis game. I mean, they're playing Utah Tech. I want to see them next time they play a ranked opponent. That's why that Mercer game was so important, man. That's why I'm never going to get over this. No contest is absolute bull crap. Absolute bull crap. I mean, no contest? What are we talking about? What are we talking about? You can't no contest a top-ranked game, the first game of the season. You got to find, and that actually brings me to my next point that I wanted to get to, so I'm so glad I actually started talking about this. Frank Gagola on Twitter said, run it back, ? UC Davis and Mercer both have a bye week by week, October 18th. That's their second bye week as Davis is also off September 13th and Mercer is off September 6th. Hey, Tim Plow, Tom Wisterstill, the people up at the Big Sky Conference, the people in the SoCon Conference, you guys need to have a conversation. We need to see this game be finished. Now, obviously, on UC Davis' standpoint, they would not want to restart that game. Should they restart the game? I don't think UC Davis would want to restart that game. I don't know if Mercer would even want to restart that game, but even then, even running that game back, you can't replicate the momentum that Mercer was building in that game. You just can't. But I would love to see them rematch this game. I would love to see them run it back. I think in all fairness to everybody involved, they probably would have to start the game 0-0. I don't know if you can start it. I don't know if you can fly somewhere, drive somewhere, or whatever that looks like to play 7 minutes and 46 seconds of a game. I mean, maybe people would tune in for that, but I don't know. I think you got to replay the whole game. But I would love to see them run it back. In a perfect world, I would love to see them run it back. How likely is that to happen? I don't know. But I would love to see them run that game back. Great point from Frank Gagola. I'm excited about that. Not that I'm excited about them running it back because they're probably not going to run it back. But if that did happen, I would love to see that. Just know you got somebody who's out here. And I know there's a ton of UC Davis fans. There's probably a ton of Mercer fans. There's probably a ton of FCS people paying attention to the sport who want to see that game play out, man. We need it. The people need it. Give the people what they want. But UC Davis, I just want to see clean offensively. Utah Tech, I'm not sure what to expect from them offensively or defensively, but from UC Davis's standpoint, I want to see a clean football game. Offensively, I want to see Caden Pennick play a full 60 minutes. I want to see him play a clean ball game. I want to see him tear him up. I mean, I want to see the UC Davis offense that we saw last year for a full 60 minutes. So that is my one key. What does UC Davis's offense look like? And honestly, just how do they bounce back after what they went through last week? Not that it was like super traumatic, but you're on this high in terms of you're winning a game. You're about to close them out. 7.5 minutes to go. Maybe it would have come down to the wire in the fourth quarter, late in the fourth quarter, but we don't know. So you got kind of left on a cliffhanger last week. How do you guys bounce back and play some clean ball this week? Young quarterback, struggled in the second half. Can you bounce back? You got to be able to bounce back in college football, and we want to see. So you guys let me know what you guys think about that in the comments below, and I will move on. Okay. The next game I want to get into is Idaho State versus Southern Utah. Now, hey, I did a video on this guy. I dropped some of his top throws on my Twitter account. Jordan Cook, man. Jordan Cook. Boy. 380 passing yards, 30 for 50, 1 passing touchdown, 3 interceptions. Now, you got to clean up the interceptions. He's got to clean up the interceptions. But against this, I think a couple of things about this matchup. First off, Idaho State's 0-1, Southern Utah's 0-0. Idaho State has played UNLV. They played a very tight game against UNLV, and obviously they couldn't get any stops. That's what ended up losing them the game. But a 380-yard passer, 130-yard rusher, and a 105-yard receiver all in the same game. Now, obviously, that's a nature of the Idaho State offense. Like, they're always going to be able to move the ball. They're always going to be able to be successful offensively. What do I want to see this week? I want to see a high-flying offense from Idaho State, but I want to see clean ball through and through from Jordan Cook. There is no bigger fan in FCS football of Jordan Cook than myself, and I'll come out and say it right now. I am a big fan of Jordan Cook. I think he's a dog. I think he's got all the talent to be an NFL quarterback, but there are some things that he needs to clean up, man. The interceptions got to stop. 3 interceptions. I mean, we know, Jordan, we know you can put the ball wherever the hell you want it to go. You can put it there. But sometimes you don't always need to throw the throw. Some of the throws in the game against UNLV were just bonehead throws, my brother. Bonehead throws. So I want to see a full, clean game from Jordan Cook. I expect him to bounce back from that. I mean, he threw for 380, man. He almost threw for 400 yards. I mean, I'm telling him he needs to clean it up, and he's probably listening to me like, you don't know what the hell you're talking about. And maybe I don't. But 380 is amazing. 3 interceptions is very, very ugly. And if you really think about it, Idaho State very well could have won that game against UNLV had it not been for Jordan Cook's 3 interceptions. Now, they brought in the backup quarterback who also threw in interceptions and his damn self. But 4 interceptions, you're never going to win a game against good competition throwing 4 interceptions. Good football teams do not turn over the ball. Good football teams do not shoot themselves in the foot. Idaho State, I think, has the makings of potentially being a top half Big Sky football team. But the mistakes, the turnovers, they have to be cleaned up. Defensively, obviously, Idaho State needs to be better, but that was UNLV. What are they going to do against Southern Utah? I think this game potentially has the makings of being a pretty good game this weekend. Southern Utah was a bubble team last year. They ended up not making the playoffs, but they very well could have been a playoff team and could have been pretty decent. Idaho State, from what I saw last week, I think they have the makings of one of the better teams in the Big Sky Conference. Now, obviously, we are 1 week in and we are 1 game in. We haven't seen much. But when I talk about what teams need to be successful, and Coach Nuanez will probably disagree with me on this, but I still firmly believe this. To be successful at the FCS level, I think you need a quarterback who's above average. And I think I think above average is saying it lightly. I think you need a quarterback who can really make things shake. Cam Miller can make things shake. Tommy Mellott can make things shake. Did not win a national championship, but went to 2, one as a freshman, one as a senior. Mark Gronowski can make things shake. Even Clifton McDowell, who took Montana to a national championship in 2023, could make things shake. He had the ability with his legs. When you think about pure pocket passers, guys who have arm talent, there is few better than Jordan Cook in the FCS. Definitely in the Big Sky Conference, but I would say in the entire FCS, there's few better quarterbacks than Jordan Cook. So I want to see a good, clean game from this just Bengals offense, this Idaho State offense. That's my number one key. Jordan Cook has to play a clean game. That is my number one key. That is my number one key. No interceptions. Throw for 300 plus, but you gotta stop the interceptions. Number two, I want to see a really, really good game from this Idaho State defense. I want to see a really, really good game from this Idaho State defense. Obviously, they gave up what they gave up, 38 points against UNLV. That is an FBS opponent. I don't want to give them an excuse and say it's an FBS opponent, but that is an FBS opponent. This week, what are you going to do in order to win this game? I need to see the defense get stops. Now, will Southern Utah be what they were last year? I don't know. They had a really, really good running back who rushed for 1,900 yards last year. He is not there anymore. What are they going to do? But defensively, you got to be clean. Offensively, I want to see Jordan Cook play a clean game. Outside of that, I'm curious to see if Dason Brooks can repeat what he did last week, 132 rushing yards on 18 carries. I think he averaged like more than 5 yards a carry for sure. Let me do the math on that real quick. 132 divided by, no, too many numbers in here. 132 divided by 18, 7 yards a carry for Dason Brooks. So excited to see what Dason Brooks can do. Ian Duarte, 105 yards on 6 receptions, 1 touchdown. And that throw to Ian Duarte, nasty. But I'm very excited about this Idaho State Southern Utah game. I think this could be a sneaky good game. I don't know much to expect from Southern Utah other than I think they really want to rely on the run game for the most part. So is that something that Idaho State struggled with last week? Yes. And to actually go back to that, because that's actually a good point to bring up. When you think about that UNLV game last week against Idaho State and UNLV, Idaho State gave up 300 rushing yards. That cannot happen this week. They gave up 147 on 10 carries to Jaden Thomas. One of them was he had a long 70-yard rushing touchdown, which was mainly a lot of his rushing yards. But he still had a lot of big runs, chunk runs in there as well. Anthony Colandrea, their second-string quarterback, or he cycled in, but they played 2 quarterbacks. Anthony Colandrea, their quarterback, 13 carries, 93 yards. He averaged 7 yards a carry. Their other quarterback, Alex Orji, 6 carries, 34 yards, averaged 5 yards a carry. Their other running back, their backup running back, Jalen Glover, 7 carries, 28 yards. He averaged 4 yards a carry. And then Kavon Lee had 5 carries, 5 yards. He averaged 1 yard a carry. But 300 rushing yards. You cannot have that. It cannot happen. It cannot happen. So that is my number 2 key is, can Idaho State stop the run? Can Idaho State stop the run? I think if Idaho State can stop the run, I think we're talking about a pretty damn good football team this year. But obviously they didn't show that in week 1. I don't think playing an FBS opponent really affects whether you can stop the run or not, outside of the fact that the offensive line might be a little bigger, the defensive line might be a little smaller, but that doesn't matter. I want to see Idaho State, how they can stop the run. You're playing against a team that wants to lean on the run in Southern Utah. At least they did last year with having a 1,900-yard rusher. So are you guys going to be able to stop the run effectively against Southern Utah? That's a key. Jordan Cook, offensively, clean game. Can you look clean? Can you still be explosive as you are offensively with your arm and everything you do offensively while not turning over the ball? That is a key. And then I really just got 2 keys. Offensively, can Jordan Cook be the same that he was last week? Can he do that without turning over the ball? And then defensively, can they stop the run? 300 rushing yards against UNLV cannot happen against Southern Utah. So you guys let me know what you guys think about that in the comments down below. And I will get you guys, and I will move on. I'm not going to catch you guys later because I got one more game to talk about. I will move on. Okay, last but certainly not least, we got Idaho versus Washington State. I do have a depth chart for Idaho. We are going to get into it also. So I'm pulling up that depth chart right now. Oh, can't pull it up right there. Got to pull it up right here. Okay, Idaho depth chart. Their top 2. I just thought of this, but I don't know if any of you guys saw it. But did you guys see the New Mexico coach? Not New Mexico, but like Coach Eck and the New Mexico Lobos dropped their depth chart. And, you know, since Michigan wasn't dropping a depth chart, New Mexico dropped a bunch of like Tom Cruise. I'm blanking on the other actors' names. Forrest Gump is the actor. You guys know who I'm talking about. It's going to bug me. I can't. Tom Hanks, Tom Cruise. And there was one more actor. I think it was Leonardo DiCaprio and some of their roles. And it's funny. It's funny. Okay. But with this top, I'm going to tell you right now what my number 1 key with this Idaho game is. Joshua Wood. I think he's one of the biggest keys to whether this team is good or not this year. Idaho was good last year. They weren't great. I think all the pieces on Idaho's squad were really, really good last year. I honestly think if you put, gosh, why am I blanking on their other quarterback's name? The quarterback that left in 2023. He transferred to Oregon State. Somebody help me out down below. You guys know exactly who I'm talking about. If they had that quarterback last year, I think Idaho goes deeper into the playoffs. I think Idaho might have a chance to beat Montana State with a better quarterback last year. And that's not to poo-poo on Jack Lane. Obviously, Jack Lane was hurt a lot of the season last year, so maybe he does a little better. But I wasn't very sold on their backup and their third-string quarterback last year, particularly Jack Wagner. I didn't think he was the greatest quarterback. And then Nick Josefek as well. I didn't think he was the greatest quarterback last year. So if Joshua Wood can really put together a good campaign this year, I think, and obviously, that defense was really good last year in terms of their pass rush and getting to the quarterback. What does that look like for Idaho this year? They lost, mind you, this is another team that lost their head coach and a ton of their pieces left and went to New Mexico. So that's something you must understand before judging this Idaho team. But I do think it's a team that has the chance to be pretty damn good this year, depending on how Joshua Wood looks. Joshua Wood, starting quarterback, redshirt sophomore out of Fresno State. Running back is Elisha Cummings. He returns for the 2025 football season. They also had Deshaun Buchanan, who left to go to New Mexico. Cortez Minyiver Emerson, I believe he was one of the returners. I believe he used to wear number 14. Now he's wearing number 7. Tony Harst, very fast guy. Trace Higgins, I think, is one of the newer names in here, at least from my standpoint, because remember last year they had the redshirt freshman who transferred to Wisconsin, who also transferred again. Now he's at Cal. And then they had the TCU transfer in Jordan Dwyer. So they lost a few of the receivers, but at least they have some continuity in terms of pieces who were there last year. Cortez Minyiver being one of them, Tony Harst being another one. Tight end, you have Gabe Hoffman. At left tackle, you got Charlie Vleam. At left guard, you got Nate Azzopardi, preseason all-conference. At center, you got Leighton Vining. At guard, you got Leon Evans. And at right tackle, you have Keegan Henson. We'll be interested to see what this unit looks like this year as well. Defensively, at defensive end, you got Matis McLean. At D tackle, you got Mitch Jashkowiak. I definitely butchered that. At defensive tackle, you got Zach Krotzer. At defensive end, you got Donovan Parham. I think he's a returner from last year, if I'm not mistaken, or he might be a grad transfer. This guy might be a grad transfer, actually. So, at linebacker, you got Isaiah King. The other linebacker, you got Will Cornelson. And at the other linebacker, you got Dylan Lane. At safety, you got Matt Irwin. At safety, you got Hayden John. At cornerback, you got Jamel Blinman. And at the other corner, you got Caleb Ricks, freshman. Right here, Richard senior right here. Safety at a sophomore. It seems like they got some pretty young guys on this squad. I mean, their starting quarterback's a redshirt sophomore. Their starting running back's a senior. 2 of their starting receivers are redshirt sophomores. The other one is a redshirt junior. At the offensive line, their starting tight end is a redshirt sophomore. Their tackle, junior, guard, senior, center, junior, guard, redshirt freshman starting at right guard, and then at right tackle you got a redshirt sophomore. So there's some youth on this team for Idaho, and obviously they got some transfers in there. Obviously they have a new head coach. Obviously they're playing against Washington State, but this is also a team that beat Wyoming last year and a team that took Oregon to the wire, the number 1 team in the nation, to the wire last year. So I'm very interested to see what they're going to look like this year. I think the number 1 key for me is Joshua Woods. What does he look like? What is he going to bring to the table? Is he going to be able to get this offense going? That is one of my top keys for Idaho State, or for Idaho this week. Joshua Wood. What does Joshua Wood look like? Is he going to be able to be successful? And I think a lot of their success this season will be predicated on whether he can do that or not. Another one of my keys for this Idaho squad is, what does Coach Ford look like in his first, Thomas Ford, the first-time head coach at the FD1 level, former running backs coach at Oregon State? What does he look like? How does he, weather being a head coach now? Obviously, you're playing against an FBS team, so I think we got to wait to reserve our judgment for a couple of weeks until they're playing FCS competition. But in this week 1, how does he manage that? Joshua Wood, how do you look? Does he look rattled? I mean, a lot of times when you're a new starter, you're playing, it doesn't matter where you're playing at. When you're first time starting, it's gonna be nerve-wracking. It's gonna be tough. So what does that look like for Joshua Wood this week? And then defensively, I think it's going to be hard to judge them against Washington State, but I want to see that D-line. Can they bring back some of the fire that they had last year? I mean, that D-line, I think, in my opinion, was one of the best units on that squad in totality. The receiver position was the best last year, in my opinion. I mean, they had two guys who transferred to big-time D1 programs. So, I mean, from that standpoint, they had probably one of the best receiving cores in the Big Sky. So I want to see what that D-line looks like. One of the better units on their team last year. Are they able to be what they were last year? I mean, they lost a ton of pieces defensively, so it's hard to say what they'll look like defensively, but I want to see what they look like. So, number one key, Joshua Wood. What do you look like? New quarterback, first-time starter. What do you look like? Number two key, Thomas Ford. What do you look like? How are you going to manage being a first-time head coach? Are you going to be able to weather the storm, the ups and downs of being a head coach at the Division I level? How does he look? And then number three for me is that D-line of Idaho. What does that D-line look like? Are they going to be able to be as impactful as they were last year? That is something I'm keyed into. So my three keys for the game for Idaho versus Washington State. Obviously, you got to temper your expectations because it is an FCS versus an FBS opponent. But we will see what they're able to do. So you guys let me know in the comments what you think about Idaho versus Washington State. What do you guys think Idaho is going to bring to the table? You guys let me know down below, and I will move on. Okay, I'm going to talk about this very briefly, but I did want to bring this up. Montana has now officially sold a record number of season tickets for the 2025 football season. 19,700 something. I don't know exactly what the number was, but it was 19,000, and they sold out of season tickets. I don't know if we've ever seen anybody do that. Sam Herder reported that if they were in the Mountain West, they would be number 2 in season tickets sold, probably right behind Boise State. I didn't see exactly what team it was, but I'm guessing it was probably behind Boise State. But that is amazing, man. Now, obviously, there's 8 home games this year, so I don't think there's any surprise that Montana has absolutely sold out their season tickets, but it's something to pay attention to. Also, a new report by Montana BBER, which is Montana Business Economics Relations or something like that, outlines the growing connection between Grizzly Athletics and the Missoula community. $94 million is the annual impact on local businesses from Montana football, meaning that when people come into Missoula, Montana to watch a Montana football game, businesses benefit, the local all businesses benefit, hotels benefit, obviously the University of Montana is benefiting. I mean, when you talk about college football being big business, go no further than Missoula, Montana and Washington Grizzly Stadium on a Saturday night, and you understand why the economy is so much affected by Grizz football. And you understand why home playoff games mean so much. You understand why having 8 home games is such a big thing for the Missoula community, the economy of Montana. I mean, it's huge. And you could probably say the same thing about Montana State on a smaller level, but you can probably say the same thing about Montana State. They probably still are I mean, it's probably the same thing in Bozeman, Montana. I mean, Grizz football and Bobcat football are so big for the Missoula and Bozeman communities. I mean, taking football away, not having playoff games in Montana, they mean so much. So, 728 Missoula County jobs supported by Grizz football. That is staggering. $5.2 million is the impact on local businesses per football game. So local businesses, $5.2 million is the impact of football games on local businesses. I mean, college football is big business. A lot of people think college football is big business just for the universities. Absolutely not. The communities that benefit from these teams also understand that, hey, when there's games in town, more people are buying our Airbnbs, more people are buying hotel rooms, more people are coming to eat at our restaurant, more people are coming to shop at the M store to buy gear. I mean, the economic impact of a football team, and this is Montana, folks. Think about Alabama. Think about Auburn. Think about Michigan. Think about Ohio State. I mean, Columbus, Ohio, Ann Arbor, Michigan, Tuscaloosa, Alabama, Auburn. I mean, all these places are benefiting from college football. So when you see those NIL numbers, when you see the money that these athletes are being paid, just understand that everybody has been eating out here. Everybody has been eating out here. It's been just a couple of years that the athletes have been able to profit, but you understand that college football is big business, and those numbers that some of these athletes get paid is for a reason. Now, do I agree with some of the numbers they're being paid? Not necessarily, but do I think they're far off from getting their fair share of the pie? No. I think some of these players are getting exactly what they deserve. because the money that these communities are benefiting, the money that the university is making, the money that the athletics department is making, everybody gets a piece of the pie. It's only right that the players get a piece of the pie now. But the 94 million annual impact on local businesses in Missoula, 5.2 million is the impact on local businesses per football game. That is staggering. College football is big business, and Missoula is no different from that. They benefit 100% from college football. So I just wanted to talk about that. That was one of the topics the last couple of days that people have been talking about, and I wanted to insert my hat into there and give a little bit of my thoughts on it. That's crazy. Absolutely crazy. That's why playoff football is so big. You guys let me know what you guys think about the economic impact of college football in Missoula, Montana, as well as around the college football landscape, and I will move on. Okay, that is going to conclude my FCS Big Sky preview show for this week. Obviously, some big-time games coming on in the Big Sky Conference this week. We did Montana State, we did Sac State, we did Eastern Washington, we did Idaho State, we did Idaho, and we did UC Davis, Utah Tech. So you guys let me know in the comments all about what you guys think about some of these games coming up this week. I'm very excited. And I always used to do this last week. I would do it on my Monday or Tuesday. It dropped on Tuesday on my Tuesday Akem'S analysis. I'm going to do it on this preview show now. But my number one game's coming up in the Big Sky Conference. Number one, the number one game in FCS football is Sac State versus South Dakota State. That is my number one game. My number two game in the Big Sky Conference coming up this week is Eastern Washington versus Incarnate Word. My number three game in the Big Sky Conference this week is Idaho State versus Southern Utah. A lot of you guys are probably thinking, where the hell is Montana State? My number four game in the Big Sky Conference is probably Montana State. Idaho and Washington State and UC Davis versus Utah Tech. Those aren't really big games for me, but I want to see them because I want to see Caden Pinnock. I want to see what Idaho looks like. But, I'm not very sold on those games so far. Obviously, I'm going to be paying attention to them all. I got to pay attention to them all. I talk about the Big Sky Conference. I break down the Big Sky Conference. I'm a sports analyst. I got to watch them all. But if I had to pick a number one game, obviously you guys know it's South Dakota State versus Sac State. My number two is Eastern Washington versus Incarnate Word. Incarnate Word, a top-ranked team, dropped a game. Eastern Washington losing a lot of weapons. What are they going to look like? I mean, that's something I'm interested in. And then Idaho State, I want to see Jordan Cook clean it up. And then I think that could be a good game. That's why Idaho State Southern Utah is my number three game. But I want to see a good game. But those are my top games. Obviously, I'm going to be doing a preview show now, so previewing some of the games coming up over the weekend. So you guys let me know what you guys think about that. If you guys think there's anything I could add to this show, please let me know in the comments down below. I want to thank you guys so much for tapping into the channel. I'm trying to get to 2,000 subscribers. We are very, very close to 2,000 subscribers, so let us get there. Help us get there. Tell your friend, tell your mama, tell your auntie, tell your uncle, tell your cousin, tell your neighbor next door. Tell them come check out Akem'S analysis. Tell them come check out a Samuel Akem'S YouTube channel. I really appreciate all the support you guys have given me so far. For you guys in the comments who have been talking about the sound, I thank you guys so much. And most of that was on the Incarnate Word breakdown, talking about the sound. But I hear you, and I need to wear headphones. I really need to wear headphones when I shoot because I don't think I'm very good at judging where my voice is and how it's going to turn out for you guys. So for you guys who sent me the emails and commented in the video, thank you guys so much for the sound tidbits. I think I need to turn the music down, turn my mic up a little bit more, or whatever that looks like. But I need to toy around with that a little bit. But I thank you guys for leaving comments. Please leave me comments if there's any segments that you guys want me to do in this preview show on Thursdays. This is dropping on Thursdays. I'm recording on Wednesday, but it would be dropping on Thursday. But if there's anything you guys want me to talk about in particular, any segments you guys want, anything you guys want me to cover, please let me know down below. But I will catch you guys on Monday for a recap of week 1. I'm very excited about that. I'll catch you guys on Monday. See you guys later.